GH101, we are in our getting started with R programming, and we are finally ready to actually look at programs. You have R installed, and you know where I'm keeping notes, and you know where you're keeping notes. And we're going to do some beginning programs, and as we do those, we will potentially keep some notes in our programming notes. All right, so I'm going to go over here. I'm going to start a new document, a new script. So I'm going to have a new R script, and I'm going to call this something. So let's save it, and I will call this counting.r. So here is one of your classic first programming programs, no matter what language you're in. So I will say for I in, let's see, 100, print I, and let's see if that works. So what I wanted to do is print 1 up to 100, and it tells me there's an error. So we can go over to our base R cheat sheet. That's what I'm going to do to see what it had for for a for loop. All right. So I can type this in and run it, and we can talk about what the different parts are. But so there it went. It printed 1 up to 100 down here. That's pretty exciting. If I wanted to print up to 1,000, I could. So in RStudio here, we have the blue highlighted things are the keywords. So for and in are keywords. Your basic programming. So your basic programming concepts. We're over here in how does programming work, and maybe we'll have here basic programming concepts that are pretty much going to be in just about any language. Whatever you're programming, there's the concept of a loop, so that repeats some code multiple times. So we have for and while loops in R. And the way we read this is for each value in this thing, and this thing is, if I just type it down here, 1:100, that actually is a vector that has the numbers from 1 up to 100. So those are integers in there. Okay, so this 1:100 is a vector that's for all the numbers 1 up to 100, and this notation here says that for each value in 1 up to 100, I'm going to put that value into a variable called I, and then I'm going to do this code in between curly braces. So I could print I, or I could print I times I if I want to do all the squares maybe. So there are all the numbers squared 1 up to 100. Or, so that's counting, or I could do a total equals 0, and then for each number from 1 up to 100, I could add total equals total plus I. So I could print I, and then I will add I, and I'll print the total. Let's make this go up to 10. All right, so now the way I read my code is I say I have a variable called total. It's going to be 0. And then for each integer I from 1 up to 10, I print the integer. I add the integer to my total, and I print my total. All right, so what is the value of total going to be the last time it prints? You can pause and see if you can figure it out. All right, now I'm going to run it and see. So the last one printed was 55, and that so happens to be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. Okay, so that's what this did here, is it considered each number 1 up to 10 and printed them and added them up. All right, so that's a classic first program. You print out the numbers, you add them up. In R, there's a shorter way to come up with this number 55, which we've actually already seen in one of the other videos. There's a function called sum. So that's an easier way to add up the numbers between 1 and 10. Let's take some notes over here about from this program already. So we have 4. This is a loop. And we'll say 4in because that's the way we used it there. So what I'm thinking with these notes here is it's enough to remind us. So this is not going to be enough to teach you, but it's enough to remind us what we're supposed to know. Punctuation that I used this for saving a value into a variable. Variable is a word that I'm using. So variable is a name. Let's see, variable has a name, stores a value. You can retrieve the value and set the value or change the value. All right, if we're over here in RStudio, it's showing my variables over here, and it remembers ones that I've had as I've run the program. I is a variable that was 1, then 2, then 3, and up to 10. Total is 55, and then there's some of my other variables that are still sitting around. All right, parenthesis we've seen used in 2 different ways already. So if I have the name of a function that I want to call, print is a special function that we could list on our list of functions over here. So I will say print, and that should be self-explanatory. Okay, so print is the name of an R function that's supposed to do something, and in most programming languages you make a function run by saying print I. So it's like that, print 10, print I. If I say print I, that's not the way it's supposed to happen. I have to put the parenthesis there. That's the rule. Okay, so I have parenthesis for calling a function, and we also saw that parenthesis with the for-in loop. So we had for I in 10, print I. All right. What if we wanted to do printing only the odd numbers? What would we do? Or what if we want to add up the numbers only until we get to, let's say we only want to get up to, keep adding numbers until we get to a total of 100. All right. Okay, so I could say let's go up to, we're going to go up to 100, but I want to find out where was it that I actually, so I'm going to put a pound here, and a pound is the symbol that means don't actually run this line. Okay, so it changed the color there. It's not actually going to do those lines. If I run it now, nothing prints because I put the pound in front of those lines. So I want to test if total is greater than 100, or let's say greater than or equal to 100. Then I want to do something. Maybe I'll print I at that point. Okay, so the way I read this, I have a variable that starts at 0, total. I have a loop that's going to go I from 1 up to 100. Each time inside the loop, I add I to the total. Then if the total is bigger than 100, I print I. And the rule for the loop is when you get to the left curly brace that matches, let's see, when you get to the right curly brace that matches this left curly brace, you go up and do this code again. So I do it line by line, one, I do that one, and then I do this if stuff, and then when I get down here, if I have another I still to do, I do it. All right, so what value of I is going to print? It printed a bunch of numbers, a bunch of values of I. Let's go back and see, did it print them all? 14, so apparently 14 was the first one where the total was bigger than 100, and after that the total was, so it was still bigger than 100. So we got up to 14, and what's the value? So sum of 1 to 14 is 105 when I was 14. When I goes to 15, it would be 105 plus 15, which would still be bigger than 100. If I just wanted the first time, then I could say break. That's a keyword that says stop my for loop. So there I got 14. And if I wanted to, I could print the total. Okay, 14, and the total is 105. All right, now we see the left parenthesis there again, the left and right parenthesis. So this time we have the parenthesis after the if keyword. So the rule for an if is you have something in parenthesis that the program will check. It checks to see, is my total variable at least 100, yes or no? And then I have curly braces, and whatever is inside the curly braces will get run, will get executed if this is true. Okay, so we have our curly braces for the body of a function, or the body of a loop, or the body of an if or else. We could have had an else here to go with this if, and I would print, so I could print instead of, maybe I'll print negative I to say that those are values that didn't quite add up to 100 yet. So when the total is not bigger than 100, this is false, and the rule is if you have an else right after an if. So we have an if, we have parenthesis, we have something to check, we have curly braces, everything inside the curly braces is called the body of the if, and then you can have an else as the next thing. Okay. So we have if and else. So if is check a condition, run code if it is true, and else goes after an if, after the body of an if. I have a new keyword there, break. This is break out of the loop we're in. So that's how I got it to stop once we got to 100. All right. Let's say that is our counting program. Let's make it just a little bit, we have a pound as well on our list of punctuation. Very important. That's a comment. So a comment in a program is something that the program doesn't run, so I can say, I can make notes for myself to remember what we're doing for somebody that's reading this program, or I can make it so that I don't actually run something that I used to have there. All right, let's make this a little bit nicer. So I'm going to print out, this is a program to count. And also add up numbers. Okay, so if I run this, I see that text is printed there. So the single quotes there tells the program that this is text. It's not instructions. If I said print hello there, what do you think will happen? Okay, so tell me why that's a problem. Pause and look at it for a second. So I can try to run it, and it says here unexpected symbol. What's happening here is if I don't have something in quotes, it thinks that this should be the name of a variable or a function. So, or a keyword. So it should be a keyword, a variable or function, but there is no keyword or variable or function hello or there. So that's why it says unexpected symbol. If I put this inside quotes, that tells R, don't look for a variable or a function by that name, it's just text. Okay, there's hello there. All right, inside of here, I'll print here, and then why don't I print something different when we get up to 100? So I'll say print so we made it sum of 1 colon, and I'm going to type this and run it and then explain it. I equals, let's see if it complains. So far there's no error. I'm going to get rid of this. So I'm going to print for each value. I go ahead and print that I to count, because this is called counting. I need to count. I add up that to my total, and then I want to print off, I would like to print something like we made it sum of 1 to 14 equals 105. That's what I would like to print, and we'll see. There it is. Okay, so there's something called the paste function. So what I can do with the paste function is I can give it some different things with commas in between, and it will print, it'll make that into a single item of text. So in the print, I can print a number, or I can give it text. So the paste, I give it, this is text here with the quotes. Then I have a number. Then I have some more text here, and this parenthesis and equals are text because it's in between single quotes. Same thing with this parenthesis and colon. It's in between the single quotes, so it's text. Right, we have some text, we have a variable, some more text, another variable, and paste puts those all together into some text, which then gets printed because it's inside the print. All right, now this is a mildly interesting program. I think it's mildly interesting. We have another function, so paste. And we have now meant the comma. So a comma is typically used in the programming to separate. So when we have a list of things to give to the paste function, the comma is used there. So comma is for separating parameters into function calls. So these things are called parameters. The text and then the variable, they're all going into the paste function. The paste is going to do what it does. We also have greater than or equal to there, and that is a comparison. So I'll put here less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. We have equal to and not equal to. Those are all comparison operators. So I can test if two numbers are, if one is less than, if one is less than or equal to, if it's greater than or equal to, if the numbers are the same, if they're not equal to. So those are comparison operators. They all will give you something that's true or false. Either it's true or it's false. Okay, let's say that is it for our first program that everybody does. Everybody does this program at some point in time. There you go. Congrats.